1. Okay. So I work in a shitty little sushi place that is known more for all-you-can-eat than exceptional food or service. I am the server that's been there the longest and the closest thing to a manager besides our actual manager that's never there. Plus the sushi chefs which act as managers when ours is absent. It's a funky dynamic, but it pretty much works for us. So essentially, when someone asks for a manager, I'm the one they answer to, because the chefs don't speak a lot of English. I had this weird old man come in for to-go. He immediately asks for a server, I'll call A. A isn't working tonight, but I can help you.
It's your lucky day then.
Internally, I'm going, oh boy. He makes his order, pays with an $8 tip, still generous for a to-go, but I am now wondering why it's my lucky day. Then says this,
I'll be out in my car. A usually takes care of me.
Okay bro, whatever. His order gets made and bagged and sits in the pickup area for a while. 10 minutes go by and I'm wondering where this dude is. We get a little busier and I forget about him for a bit. Guess he went to do some errands or something. 20-ish minutes later his order had been sitting. He comes back into the restaurant looking pissed. He was giving me a narrow-eyed, pouty bottom lip sort of look, very obviously, with his eyes locked on me. I said something along the lines of, your order has been ready for a while. He was flabbergasted and said,
then why didn't you bring it out to my car? I gave you a $28 tip.
We don't bring orders out to cars, especially when it's busy, and I have a lot of other things to worry about. I told him he never asked me to.
A is going to hear about this. He will not be happy when he hears how you treated me today.
A is just another server, and I have seniority, so this was funny to me. He didn't even break his freaky-ass gaze as he left the door. He turned around to keep glaring at me as he shut it. My friend and fellow server was like, WTF is his problem. A few minutes later he called the restaurant I picked up.
I was just there and got the worst service of my life. I gave a $28 tip, and they never brought the food to my car. It was cold, etc. You guys have no idea what you're doing.
Customer service mode off. I am the one who helped you. First off, it was an $8 tip, so that's a lie. Second of all, we don't bring orders out to cars, and you never asked me to do so. I'm sorry you had a bad experience, but the way you were speaking to me is rude and uncalled for. And I'm hanging up now. I was stoked on being able to stand up for myself, knowing I had done my job and nothing less. And did nothing wrong. I shared my victory with the other servers who congratulated me on standing up to someone, which I never do in real-life or at work. An hour later he calls back and I recognize the number, so I don't pick up. I did have a weird feeling that he called back to apologize though, and I just thought, nah, no way. The next day I'm working the same shift. He came in and stood halfway between me and the door. There was remorse on his face. He asked if I was there the night before. I said yes, I was the one he spoke to.
I am so sorry for the way I behaved last night. My behavior was inexcusable.
He's looking down and seriously looks like he's about to cry or something. I said I appreciated that he came to apologize, and that I forgave him. He just kinda left, still looking really ashamed. It gave me some faith in humanity that people can have bad days without being terrible people. If he never came back to apologize, I would just have assumed he was a total piece of shit. I say this a lot, but I don't come across all that many people that are irredeemably assholes. Most people can own up to their shit and view us as humans, when they see what their bad behavior can do to others. At least in the area I live. 2. Bit of backstory. I'm a new server at a local sushi restaurant. This restaurant is extremely popular and has been in business for longer than I've been alive. It's won awards and been in the news, the whole shebang. It's also a disaster to work for. I'm hired as a bartender, and they throw me on whatever front of the house position they need, server, host, anything, even though they never actually trained me. Just vaguely told me where most things were. Cast RC, rude customer, me. Oh, my boss, the owner. Anyway, it's a busy Saturday night, maybe third or fourth serving shift at this restaurant, and I'm seated a five-top, a man, his wife, and their 3 kids. The kids and the wife didn't talk to me much at all, and I have no problem with them. The man, however, is the antagonist of our story. I greet the family as soon as I can, bring them their drinks. and politely ask them for their patience since we're busy. I found that 99% of people are super forgiving if you just make it known that you're doing your best. The family is fine at first, if a little quiet. They order their food and all is good. For 2 of his kids, RC orders soups, and him, his wife, and the oldest kid all get sushi. Cool, easy. Then I made a mistake. At this restaurant, all entrees come with a miso soup and salad that the servers are responsible for preparing themselves. I fully admit that it was my fault and I forgot that his kids' soups came with other soups. I was new. Having a soup and then another soup didn't make sense to me, but whatever. Throughout the beginnings of their meal, RC makes eye contact with me while I try to serve other tables near them. After each time, I go over to him and politely ask him if there's anything else I can get for him. Eventually, he flags me down and I head over. Are my kids' soups ever coming out? Since he had ordered soups, I naturally assumed he meant the actual meal, not the app miso. The restaurant was constantly slow, so I was already used to keeping guests calm while they waited too long for their food. Since we're so busy, the kitchen is probably just a little backed up. I'll go check on the soups for you, and I'm sure they'll be out in a few minutes. Don't the meals come with a miso and a salad? Where are those? Realizing I totally forgot that was a thing. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot that the soups came with those. I'm still new and getting used to the menu. I'll go and grab those for you right this second. I do just that, and bring them back 2 soups and 2 salads in at most a minute. RC is not at all pleased with this. Now how can I trust these? I had to be rude to you to get you to get these. So, I can trust that these are good? I had no idea what that meant, so I just tried to pull a solution out of my ass. If you're worried that they're not hot, they're fresh from the kitchen, but I'd be more than happy to go and make you a new one if you prefer. No, I can see that they're hot, there's steam coming from the bowl, but how can I trust them to be good since I was rude to you to make you bring them? I'm running entirely out of ideas at this point. I didn't think you were rude at all, sir, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the soups out sooner, but I can promise you that the soups are perfectly fine. I can still get another soup if you'd like. No, don't take the soup yet. I'd like to speak to the owner. Since this place had been open so long and the owner knew lots of regulars really well, I wasn't overly surprised by this. So I go and tell my boss exactly what happened, that it was my fault for forgetting, but that RC was very upset and I had no idea how to make it better. Is there a problem here, RC? Yes, me here forgot my kids' misos and I had to be rude to them to get them to remember, and now I can't trust the soup they brought. I promise you the soup is good, it's fresh and hot. Would you like a new one? The soup isn't the problem. How do I know that me didn't spit in my kids' soup? Now this angered me. I didn't show it, simply apologized and explained that I would never spit in a customer's food, especially not food for a kid, and that I didn't think he was rude at all, even though he was kinda rude to me before. He seemed satisfied with my answer, thanked me for apologizing, and my boss offered them dessert on the house. Everything was good, until it's time for the check. I've made a habit of printing checks and carrying them on me for my last walk around each table, just to save everyone a little bit of time. At worst, usually, people just don't care about me already having the check, and at best, they're happy about it. So when RC asks for the check, I set it down on the side of the table, where I am at, by his daughter who is 6 at most, and there are still some plates on the table, as well as no standing room on the other side, as we pulled an extra chair into an already tight foretop to make it work, and go to work picking up their plates. Is my daughter going to pay for the meal? I'm sorry. Do you think my daughter is going to pay for the meal? No, sir. You have to put the check by the person who is paying for the meal. You can set it by me or my wife. I moved the check down by him, having to maneuver around 2 other tables and pick up plates to make room. I'm sorry, there wasn't any space over here. RC puts the Groupon in the book and tells me he'll give me his card after I take the Groupon off. Our general policy is that we take payment and discounts off together, but some people ask for the new check first, which is fine. I run his Groupon and come back as quickly as possible. Of course, I can't even expect you to do one thing right. I need a pen. Usually people don't need pens until after they pay. Just get me a pen! I need a pen to sign! I'm sorry, sir, you haven't paid. I need a pen. I hand him a pen from my apron. He looks at the check for a minute, realizes that he doesn't need a pen, puts his card in, and almost hands me the book. He gestures for me to lean over, and I will never forget what he told me. "You aren't meant for this job." "Excuse me?" "You aren't a born server. Find a new career. Consider that your tip." I run his card, give it back, and ask my coworker to watch my tables while I go to the bathroom. It takes me a few minutes to compose myself, as his attitude and his words really got to me. I was only barely 19, and had only one serving job before that one. Now I wish I had told him it was bold to assume being a server was more than a brief job option, and that several people who I already had as my regulars after only a week would beg to differ. That man came back with his family almost every Saturday, and he had to sit there and watch as I made myself an invaluable part of that restaurant. I hope he always wondered if I spit in his beer from behind the bar. 3. Last night I was serving on the floor and had to close. Overall, the night was pretty good. I got lucky with a couple of higher than average checks and higher than average tips, which was great. Towards close, maybe 1 or 2 hours before we lock the doors, I get sat with a table of 6. 2 older ladies, 30-ish and 50-ish, possible daughter and mom, and 4 kids ages 6 to maybe 15. Off the bat, I had a feeling about the table based on how they responded when I greeted them. I started asking for drink orders, and these people were so weird about ordering, talking really slow and just not answering me at all. Whatever, I get their drinks and try to be as kind and understanding as I can. One of the kids asked for queso. Since I had a bad feeling, I double-checked with the mom. She asked me how much it would cost, so I showed her the item on the menu. "Hell no, you want queso and nachos?" "For the chips." "Nope, tell her what you're eating." I then go to the kid and she tells me she wants nachos with no guacamole or lettuce or pico. Me, okay, no problem. Did you want any meat on your nachos?
"No, just nachos with no lettuce or guac or pico."
The restaurant I work at has 3 types of nachos. Only one of them has meat on them, and obviously they're slightly more expensive because of this. Don't forget, I asked this girl if she wanted meat. I take all the orders. They're all sort of weird and stingy. The youngest kid wasn't allowed to get any food. Another kid got 1 a la carte taco, and the other kid got 2 tacos in a meal, which is basically the same cost as getting 2 tacos a la carte. And I asked the kid if she wanted rice and beans. The mom got fajitas, the most expensive item on the menu. Before I had even left the table, they ordered everything at once, so they still didn't have drinks. The mom asks me how long the food will take. I told her I didn't have a specific time frame, but I could check with the kitchen for her. I asked if she would like the checks brought out right then, since she was worried they would be late to a show, and she said that'd be great. So I ring in everyone's food, print the checks, make the drinks, pass out the drinks, pass the 2 bills, mom and 3 kids, other lady. Overhear the mom sound shocked that the bill is almost $50, as I was talking to another table. Came back, pick up their cash, and tell them I'll be back with the change. While I'm busy with my other tables, the food gets ran to their table. I walk up to check on everything as the server who is passing it out says there's a problem with the nachos. I ask the table what's wrong, and I shit you not, they say, "These nachos don't have no meat on them." I told them that we had 3 types of nachos and that I was sorry for the confusion, and could get them nachos with meat. They asked for ground beef, so I went back to planning to just ask the kitchen to put some beef on the nachos that were wrong. But the other server threw away the entire plate of nachos. I ring in new nachos on the fly, get the original nachos comped off, reprint the ticket, increased from $48 something to $51.50, and bring back the tabs to the table with the change. Fast forward, kid has new nachos, everyone's happy with their food, and I drop off the to-go boxes the mom asked for. And then she spoke. "That was your tip, you know." "I'm sorry, what?" "Well, I didn't know it was going to cost extra for those nachos, and all that cash on the table was for the bill and your tip." "I'm sorry, meat costs extra, and the only way for me to get it is to ring in what I need." "Yeah, well, it's not my problem, is it? That was your tip. That was your tip, that's all I'm saying." At that point, I just walked away and tried to keep my cool. Once the party finally left, I walked back over to help bust the table, and noticed that both tickets had nothing left on them, which I expected. It sucked nonetheless to get stiffed on their combined $67 table, though, after how much they had me running and the way they talked to me. I was fuming, and it took me a good 20 minutes to chill out. What I would have given to have all hell break loose on that lady. 4. Has any customer you guys ever had spat on their payment? Yesterday I had a couple come in that actually did that. The story of what happened before and after is still baffling me. It's Monday night, nothing unusual happening, just tending to 4 or 5 tables solo when the couple comes in. I greet and direct them to their table. But they see a patio area in the back and request to sit there, which I oblige to. Nothing unusual from them so far. I give them menus and water and come back in a few minutes to see what's up. The guy just asks a few questions about what suggestions I have and whatnot. I take their order and bring out their appetizers and alcohol when it's ready. Honestly, they seemed like normal people. But unbeknownst to me, shit was about to go down as I was bringing their entree. I set the food down, ask if everything was alright. And they tell me they only had a little bit of their appetizer and they would like to get a refund on the item. I tell them I'll take it to the kitchen and see what I can do. Obviously, unless there was something inherently wrong with the food, I can't just take it off their tab. We sometimes do discounts on just that item, but this wasn't one of them. That's what I end up telling them, and I say it's what my manager told me to say. However, the guy is adamant that he wants to speak to the manager, so I trudge back to the kitchen to tell the owner and manager that the table wants to speak to her. Now, that's just one of the few things that made these people downright the most entitled, petty, and rude customers I've ever had. After I come back inside, I run some food and tend to some tables, when I straight up hear loud-ass yelling from the customers to my manager. How this is the worst customer service they had, how rude we, waiter and manager, were. Some of the tables inside were even turning around to look at WTF is going on. At this point, it's just like, whatever. I just want them to pay for their shit and leave. Some time passes by and the couple come inside wanting to pay their tab. I bring the check to them and the guy looks down to see we haven't removed the item from their bill. Then he tells me if we're gonna make them pay for the food they said they didn't like, they want it boxed up. So I box it up and give it to them. While they were handing some cash to put down, I'm right next to them refilling some water bottles, when I see the girlfriend take these plastic alcohol advertisements we have and drop it between the water fountain and the wall. Not to mention the guy was still berating me, spouting the same stuff from before at the same time. At that point, my brain just shorted out and I was at a loss for words, so I just walked away. And that was the end, is what I would say if they didn't, as they were walking out, save for the last time that they didn't like the food they ordered and won't be paying for it. They didn't. What they didn't pay for the item, they made up in spit. They fucking spat on the check, man. To top it all off, when I went to bust their shit from outside, I found that they took the sizzle platter that had some of the food and sauce on it and turned it onto the metal grate table they sat at. That was truly some next level fuckery I've never experienced before and hope to never experience again. 5. So a few days ago I encountered the worst kind of customer. The kind that sits at a dirty table and steals the cash tip left over from the previous table. It's in the middle of the dinner shift for our busiest day of the week. We were pretty much just turn and burn all night long. My buddy, we'll call him Steve, closes out a table, who leaves him a cash tip on the table. A new two-top is ushered towards the dirty table, where they are told to hold on for just a second while we finish bussing it. Of course, they don't listen and sit down. Before they were directed over to the table, I'm made aware that it's gonna be mine, so I do what I can to bus it and get it ready since I have hands. At this point, I've seen Steve's tip on the table before we're finishing bussing it, and know that it was on the table at one point. The table sits, and I greet them, at which point I see the cash on the table again. Not sure if it's Steve's tip or their money, since I didn't complete bussing the table, I don't say anything. I get them drinks, take their order, put it in, done. The cash is gone off the table at some point during this time. Steve comes up and asks me, "Hey man, did you see a cash tip on table X?"
Gina said there was a tip when she finished bussing it.
I tell him yes, I saw money on the table, but I'm not sure if it was his tip. I offered to go ask the table if they saw cash on the table, so I do. And I'm very clear to ask them if it was on the table when they sat down. No response. I ask again, and the girl shares a look with the guy before she answers yes. There was money on the table. The guy looks at me, realizes I'm not going anywhere until he gives me the money, and reluctantly pulls out a $5. He pauses, seems to think, and then pulls out another dollar bill before finally saying,
Yeah, there was $6.
It takes me a second to realize that this dude isn't moving solely because he's stoned or something, but he was hoping I would walk away and let him steal the fucking tip. I just tell him, you know that was a server's tip, right? Before giving Steve his tip and telling the manager on duty about it. Everyone is appalled, and thank the restaurant gods, management decides to cancel their food order and throw them out. The guy tries to get into the face of the manager who handled the situation, and talks a lot of shit and claims he found it on the ground, culminating in him demanding we cancel their order, which, of course, the manager laughs at, telling him we already have, and to get the fuck out. To answer a very valid question some may have, of why we didn't take the cash tip off the table. Most of our servers prefer to pick up cash on the table themselves here. CC tips, no one cares who grabs it, but cash tips, the servers will generally get themselves. Strange, I know, but that's how it is here. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, number 42. Somewhere in the restaurant at the end of the universe, a server's having a very bad day. I did a thing earlier. I was waiting till monies went into my bank account, and they did a couple of days ago. So I've been debating whether or not it's time, because I'm not actually going to do the job itself until we get into the summer. But I was going back and forth. Okay, I'm going to do it, and that is reviving my father's old fish tank, because I kept the tank going for a few years, and I'd clean it out. I'd make sure they were fed, obviously. Sprinkle a little food in a couple of times a day. I think I usually did, or was it just once? I can't remember. I kept them fed anyway. And eventually, as fish do, they got sick, and I woke up one day, and they were all dead. The sickness has spread. I'd even put the thing in, the stuff you're meant to put in when that happens, but it was too late and they were all gone. And I've always felt quite ashamed that I let that happen to the tank, and quite ashamed that I just cleared all the dead fish out. There was nothing living in it, and eventually I just drained the water out, because I didn't really care to deal with it at that point. So I keep thinking I should get that going again. I mean, my dad's gone, but I know he'd be happy if it continued to function, because he put a lot of work into that tank. And so I saw a thing the other day. I mentioned about the using Jason Voorhees as a fish tank ornament. So I'm going to do that. So I've ordered everything I need, gravel, and fresh everything basically, because the gravel in tank's been sitting for so long I wouldn't even want to attempt to clean it. So everything's getting cleared out, everything's getting chucked. So new gravel, new heater, new pump, everything, even got a cool little new vacuum as well. All sorts of new tools, and of course I have also ordered the Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason, the proper NECA one. I almost got it from AliExpress, but that's a story in of itself. And it's not a very interesting story, it's just a story in of itself. And there's a little set with like the rock and the Crystal Lake sign and everything that you put in with the gravel in that. So I've got that to go with it, and that'll be a little project for me in the summertime. The only thing I'll have to check is that the bulb is still working, the bulb inside. I think it might be, but I've not had it on for many years. Let me think. I think I kept the tank going for 2 or 3 years. I kept it going after my dad died, and I think I kept it going another couple of years after my mum passed. So it's maybe been empty for about 8 years by this point. So I'm actually kind of excited about it, because It's going to look very pretty because I've got the kind of the white and blue gravel. I'm not sure if I've got enough for that, but I can always order another bag if I need it. And yeah, the Friday the 13th thing is going to be quite cool, I think. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.